Hello and welcome to the Capital Conversation with me, Michael Hayman. Now turn down the heating and cast back the duvet because my guest is the creator of the Hot Coral Bank cards doing the rounds in London today, and who knows, tomorrow the world. He's Tom Blomfield, the CEO of Monzo, the financial service that has just welcomed its millionth customer and also banked a cool £85 million investment round which values the company at £1 billion. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You've done all that in 1,000 days.
It feels like a lot longer.
Do you sleep?
Not very much.
What's the, just first of all, give us a sense of the business. I mean, for those that don't know about Monzo, give us the quick. Well, let's hear the investment pitch.
Those are perhaps two different things. I think the investment pitch from really from our first investment deck, I think it said, we're building a powerful financial control centre for 1 billion people around the world. So it's really that huge ambition from day one. But today, right now, we provide a current account via a mobile phone to anyone in the UK. You sign up in seconds and you get the Hot Coral debit card you might have seen around. You can spend money, send and receive sort of cash from friends, withdraw and deposit cash, sort of. It's really day-to-day money management. That's what we're about.
So what makes it different from a bank?
We ask our customers.
Apart from the good-looking credit card.
Yeah, the very bright card. Visibility and control are the things that people most often mention. So with your normal bank, you might go out on a weekend and spend some money and sort of lose track, and you look at your statement on a Monday or Tuesday morning when it finally updates and realise you're way in the red, and then you get hit with these fees and charges, and it just feels like a horrible experience, whereas we tried to rebuild it with modern technology to work the way people expect in the modern world.
I mean, I hear you visibly bristle when you hear the word unicorn, but I mean, £1 billion valuation for your business. I mean, you're clearly doing a lot of things very right. What do you think investors are buying into?
It's absolutely that long-term vision. So this idea, not that we're necessarily rebuilding the high street banks, but we're trying to imagine how personal finance is going to exist in 5 or 10 years. And what we believe is it's going to be a hub and spoke model, I guess, is a term we've used before, where you have a single control centre, a place that lets you visualise all of your money wherever it sits, those spokes from third-party providers. So rather than having all of your products from one bank, you might use Monzo as a control centre and then just plug in all of the different stuff you use.
And what can you understand when you use that control centre? What's the kind of the key, I guess, the key bit of control you get as a customer?
It's really peace of mind. It's really emotional. So just And this is something we're working to over the next few years. It's right now we have a TransferWise integration, so you can send money abroad to other bank accounts. We've partnered with another savings bank, so you can get interest on your money. But in the long term, it's really everything from your student loan, your credit cards, your mortgage, your other savings accounts, your gas and electricity bill, your home insurance, your car insurance, really everything.
Right. But I mean, when you hear critics about Monzo, what they'll say is, look, fantastic marketing, very slick company, but when it all boils down to it, it's another financial services offer very much like many others, but with a good digital layer. I mean, presumably,
and making much less revenue is their criticism. Yeah. I think the people who look at traditional banks and then look at Monzo sort of come to the conclusion that Monzo is just not a very good bank. And I think that's, if you're making that direct comparison to what used to exist, that's absolutely fair. We take in hundreds of millions of pounds of deposits, and we lend 3 or 4% of them. A typical bank will lend 100% of the deposits, and by that measure, we're not doing a very good job of banking.
So what's the better measure? What should people really notice?
Playing a different game. I think we're trying to be the primary interface between a customer and all of their money. We help the customer get a better deal on all of these different products, and we take a service fee on each of them. And so rather than taking big credit risk, lending out huge amounts of mortgages, we act as a platform without a huge balance sheet.
Well, actually, let's move on to the customer, because it's particularly the millennial market that seems to have really responded well to the business. Is that just because it's who you are, it's who your team are? What's the formula?
I think it's a part of a reflection of the early team. We were sort of late 20s, early 30s, many of us, not all of us, and we built a product that we wanted to use, and we told our friends and they told their friends. So something like 60% of our customers are sort of 18 to 30, another 25% are 30 to 40. So it is true it skews younger. But there's this great book I really like called Innovator's Dilemma that describes this sort of disruptive innovation, this new thing that breaks into a market, typically looks a bit like a toy, isn't fully featured yet, and appeals to young people. And then over time, very quickly, it rapidly evolves, so it then adds the features and it appeals to the mainstream market and really takes out the incumbents. I think that's what's happening here.
But people, especially a certain generation loves your product. They love your bank. How have you what's been the trigger? What's been the kind of, I get it in terms of that's what the business might look like, but in terms of the kind of the clearly tribal appeal that you've created, what's created the Monzo tribe, would you say?
That's a great question.
1 million of them, right?
Yeah, just over 1 million now. I think it's it's hard to pinpoint a silver bullet. I think it's a few things. One is the app that's really simple to use. It's the Hot Coral card. It's the budgeting and money management. But a big part of it is the moral, sort of social mission, the very bold statement we made that we're here to build a better bank and we want your help. It's this idea that people just don't trust their banks.
So the Times said that even the online queue creates a I want to join this club feeling. How does it do that?
Well, I think it's partly behavioural psychology, so understanding what makes human beings tick. It's a big part of Monzo.
We'll get to the idea of the good bank in a moment, but of course the question, I guess, is how far can you scale with this market? I mean, one of the sort of the issues that people will raise, they'll evidence the transactions that people are spending are quite low. How do you sort of scale that? How do you build that proposition in this next chapter?
Yeah, so I think it's first of all about scaling the number of users and then deepening the relationship with each user. So right now we're adding about 100,000 current accounts per month. So that's 1.2 million accounts per year. We're the fastest growing UK bank by really some distance. So that's sort of, we're broadening out pretty well. Deepening the relationship is about getting people, putting them more of their money through Monzo. It went from something like £450 a month average spend at the start of the year to more like £700 or £800. So it is deepening already.
And on that 100,000 new customers, do you have a good understanding of the demographic, who you're, I mean, is it essentially an urban younger audience you're building?
Yeah, typically younger, typically people who live in metropolitan areas. It's because it's all word of mouth. We're really not paying for growth, so it's just people telling their friends.
So are they the bet on the future? I mean,
Yeah,
is that potentially what you've got here, is an army of the future?
I think so, and they'll grow and get older, and they'll probably tell their friends and their parents, and then it'll grow that way. So I really do see it moving into the mainstream, particularly as we add these additional features like savings accounts that matter more with people who have cash to save.
Now, I understand you communicate with customers in both English and emoji.
That's right.
Come on, what's the most common emoji you're using with
probably
with customers?
smiley face, I'd guess, or sort of the little
money.
money
Those are overdrawn.
The little money with wings, I guess that comes out a lot. On St Patrick's Day, it was 3-leaf clover, I believe. We mix and match.
And is that part of the appeal, do you think?
It's sort of part of the whimsy, I guess. Well, I guess part of it is speaking the customer's language. This is sort of the way customers interact with our helpline is primarily not through a phone line. It's actually sort of WhatsApp-style in-app chat. That's the way I communicate with my friends, and most of our customers communicate, sort of in-app text chat.
And the Hot Coral card, I mean, that's a big part of the mythology, right? You've played a blinder there, right?
Yeah, it was Hugo, our head of design from really day one, is a big part of the design of the whole app and
Hope you got a good bonus.
He owns a good chunk of the company. So.
But you've taken on this investment, and you've correctly, I guess, made the point that investment is not the same as building a profitable business.
Yeah.
But you've still got a business to build.
Absolutely.
And at the moment, you've got losses to turn into profits.
Yep.
In terms of how you deal with that, as an entrepreneur, as a business builder, does that keep you awake at night?
I think as long as you're aligned with your investors and staff members, colleagues, and your customers, and you're all sort of on the same page about it, no. I think we're in a great place. So first of all, we're acquiring 100,000 customers a month for free, practically. We can run a current account for about £10 a year, which is 95% lower than a high street bank. And we make revenues that are probably only £12 or £13 a year, which again is 90% lower, but our costs will stay the same as our revenues grow. And so sort of we've seen this model play out again and again, where you've got high street competitors like Blockbuster, and someone comes in with a model that's ultra low cost. It's only a matter of time before the high street incumbent dies out.
Yeah, I mean, you've made that point that you want to be that model. If Amazon is for retail, you're going to be for banking. Presumably, the investors are going to be with you for the long term on that. How do you keep them on side?
I think being really clear when you decide whose investment to take, what you're agreeing on. And so it was very, very sort of important for us. In the early days, we got Eileen Burbidge from Passion Capital, and we talked a lot about the vision and what we were trying to achieve, and she was absolutely on board. And as each round progresses and we bring new investors on board, it's about having that conversation with them and saying, look, we're not aiming for an IPO in a year or two. We're not driving towards immense profitability in the short term. We're in this game to acquire hundreds of millions of users and build a platform for the future.
Now, we're racing to the break, but on that point about the investors, quick thought, apart from the profits and the long-term returns, how do you keep an investor happy?
I think you tell them what you're planning to do, and then you go away and you do it.
So be as good as your promises.
Yeah, or sort of over-deliver on your promises, I think.
Okay, right. Well, listen, we're going to leave it there, but when we come back, we're going to move from the millennial mindset to the morals of money. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. My guest today is Monzo CEO Tom Blomfield. Now, Tom, I want to move on from the business you've created to some of the things you've been speaking about, because you've spoken about Monzo's moral obligation to have a positive impact.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't think it's just Monzo's obligation. I think it's any company's obligation. We came out of an era, sort of the businesses that seem to have been started in the late 90s, early 2000s, that have become global tech giants. And they took this position often, this sort of agnostic, amoral position, don't be evil, we're just a platform, this sort of...
But is don't be evil an agnostic position?
That's not a positive statement, is it? It's sort of don't do anything bad, but don't necessarily do anything good either. And I think if you build a company that has a global scale, you have impact on the whole world. And I think there's a moral imperative to make sure that impact is a positive one.
So is that a beyond profit point?
Oh, absolutely it is. I think this whole maximising shareholder value is important, but it's not the sole driver of companies in today's world.
So when you look at it from a Monzo perspective, what does that mean practically?
So practically, in the short term, it means making Monzo a place where people from all walks of life and backgrounds can come and do great work. And then it means offering our product to as broad a range of people as possible. So it's people who have had a tough time in life, who've been bankrupt, who might be homeless, who might be new immigrants or refugees. All of these people get screwed, frankly, because they can't access mainstream finance.
So, okay, so let's look at your business. I mean, one of the points you make on your own website is that you're behind the curve and your own view on issues like diversity. I mean, is it a kind of case of those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, do you think? Or
no, I think that we all need to talk about this way more. I think there are some areas of diversity we're behind on. So we just published an update on this today, actually. In terms of gender balance, we're something like 65% male, 35% female. And that's an issue that's endemic across the tech industry. If you look at something like proportion of our staff who self-identify as LGBT, that's something like 27 or 28%. So I think we're doing really well in some areas, less well in others, and we've set some ambitious targets and we need to strive to meet them.
I mean, you mentioned Google and Facebook and, I suppose, a number of these other technology majors that you're sort of taking aim at here. I mean, do you see these companies as being that kind of first generation that made companies like yourself possible? I mean, do they have a place, do you think? I mean, they're certainly huge valuations as they stand at the moment, but do you think of them as the future?
I think let me take a step back. I profoundly believe in the ability of technology to improve the world. And I think overall the impact that companies like Facebook and Amazon and Google and Uber is positive for the world. I genuinely believe in the ability of technology to move society forwards. I think around the edges, and these are now getting some pretty big edges, there are some areas where the ethics of their business, they need to take a second look at them.
Maybe you could imagine a Google or an Amazon looking at a Monzo and saying, that'd be an interesting part of our business. I mean, could you ever see yourself working alongside Jeff Bezos or others? Or do you think of them as really the past, the first generation? Is this about a new cast?
I don't think they're the past, certainly. I think they're certainly the present. I think our ambition is to build a company of the scale of the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Googles, and to get to that scale and global reach, and then to use that both to drive profit, but also to improve the lives of people around the world.
I mean, there are big issues where finance can help. I mean, you've mentioned some of the diversity points, women in finance, 1.5 million unbanked adults in the UK. I mean, what could be done, what should be done, and presumably it's more than just a Monzo play here.
Absolutely. So this year, one of the things we're most proud of is the work we've done with problem gamblers. So we launched the ability for people to self-exclude from gambling. So effectively turn off gambling transactions within the app so they can't spend in bookmakers or on gambling websites, and to have a cool-down period of 2 days to turn it back on. We had something like 25,000 people self-exclude, and we've seen a 70% reduction in gambling behaviour amongst that cohort, which I think is phenomenal. So we're really proud of that.
And do you get an understanding of the personal stories behind that?
Oh, a lot of them, yeah. There's a guy called Danny in particular who's spent a long time on our forum. He was some of the inspiration behind this work, and he's talked about how it really genuinely changed his life. So those kind of individual vignettes are just so powerful. And
technology is the enabler that makes that possible.
Technology plus sort of human compassion. I think the two in combination are hugely powerful.
Let's talk about London, because Monzo is seen as a beacon of what's possible in FinTech, I guess. And is it still a place where, if you were starting Monzo today, let's fast forward 1,000 days. I mean, if you were starting it today, do you think, in the light of Brexit and all the changes that are going on, do you think you could do it again?
So far, because we've been UK-centric, yes, I do. I think Brexit does harm our ability to internationalise. Pre-Brexit, we had the ability to passport our licence to any European geography in a relatively seamless way. Now we're going to be obliged to open up a second office, to move some staff abroad, to hire people there, and then to passport from that office abroad.
How bad could it get for your business, do you think? I mean, if there was a no-deal Brexit, is that a game changer?
I think our business is pretty resilient, honestly. The amount of lending we do is very small. If there's an economic downturn, everyone still needs a bank account. Some lending goes bad, but the amount of lending we're doing right now is so small that it's not important. And the amount of growth we're seeing, I don't think it's vitally important for us.
And when you look at the London scene, I mean, even in a short period over those 3 years, I mean, there have been some amazing companies that have come onto the scene. I mean, how does it feel being a London growth entrepreneur? And in fact, one of the posters, I guess, of London, of what's possible for a London growth story. Yes.
I think it's amazing to see what's happened to the London technology scene, probably over the last 10 years, actually. I tried raising money for my first business in 2007, and we failed completely. And now to see the number of companies getting beyond that startup phase to sort of scale up, really raising a lot of money. Even in our own industry, you've got N26 in Germany and Revolut and us all raising great amounts of money to go and attack this problem.
I read that it wasn't kind of investment or investor sort of woes that might keep you awake at night. It was actually the idea that you might not get there first, and actually a competitor might come there. Is that what keeps an ambitious entrepreneur on the up, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily looking at today's competitors. I think what I was talking about was that there might be a better solution that's out there. And maybe the person working on that is someone in his or her bedroom or garage that's sort of hacking away with a couple of friends, and they sort of stumble on this model that then gets to 30, 40, 50 million customers overnight.
Because I suppose you're in a rarefied position of seeing what can happen very, very quickly in the world of business. How does that affect you, and how does that make you tick as a person?
It's strange. It feels like even internally, we're talking about speeding up. It doesn't feel like we're fast. And then someone reminds you it's only been 1,000 days or 3.5 years or something, and it's sort of astonishing. So,
have you changed over that period yourself?
I don't know. I'd hope so. I hope I've sort of developed a bit more maturity, I'd hope. I don't know. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask my colleagues.
Well, I hear you're a big video game plan. Is that player? Is that part of the maturity?
Keeps me. I don't know, but I think that keeps me help sort of empty my mind.
Well, apparently your parents instilled in you an ethos that success meant earning money. Is it more than that now for you, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something we've taught with them as a family. I think that was a pretty narrow way to approach the world and to approach success. So I think, yeah, we didn't talk a huge amount about sort of finding happiness or satisfaction, and it turns out that those are the only things that really matter.
Apparently your dad wanted you to study law at Oxford, which you went on to do. Is there a chalk stripe version of yourself in another life, walking the streets of London, perhaps?
I don't know, yeah. It's so strange to think what might have happened. I started my first business, Go Carders, in gardening leave between one consultancy and another. And if that hadn't taken off, I wonder where I'd have been.
What was the kind of, I guess, your personal reaction in terms of realising that the world of law or management consultancy, which I understand you also went into, when did you realise those things just aren't for me?
Probably halfway through university, actually. I think I always knew from really an early age, from teenage years or before, that I wanted to run businesses. Not necessarily start, but definitely run businesses. But I thought I needed to do some kind of traineeship or apprenticeship in something first. So that was sort of, I saw law that way and management consulting too. Was
there a conversation with your dad to say, look, yeah, I've done the law degree, but I'm not going to be a lawyer?
No, but there was I won't name the person, a very funny conversation. When I was a management consultant, I was going from a good small firm. I had an offer to go to McKinsey. And I spoke to a family friend who came from sort of more traditional world. And he told me turning down McKinsey would be the worst decision I made in my life. Yeah. And I'd regret it for the rest of my life.
I'm sure McKinsey are going to be trying to sell you plenty of services in the future. But it's interesting, isn't it, in terms of those tributaries, the twists and turns. I mean, when did you, I guess the thought about when did you realise that you could do something exceptional? And was there a moment, or has it been a more iterative?
I think I've always thought everyone can do something exceptional. Genuinely, I've always believed I could do something exceptional, but I didn't believe that I was an exception. I thought everyone could, and I still believe that. I think I was very lucky at university. I was around some great people. Even at my management consulting firm, I worked with. In my group, there were only 40 or 50 of us. James Meekings was a year or two above me, who's just IPO'd Funding Circle. And number of entrepreneurs are running really great businesses.
So there are more people out there that could do this?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So what's your message to them? Last question. What's your message to the aspirant Monzo founders?
Just get started. I think especially people from stable, privileged backgrounds, which I am absolutely, need to take more risk. I think people settle for a steady career too soon.
Just do it. Somebody else said that, didn't they?
I think they did.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much to my guest, Tom Blomfield, CEO of Monzo. Now, he was once described as being much like his own app, effortlessly visible, easy to use, and gives you the information you ask for without any fuss. Well, there's no disagreement there. He's at the vanguard of an emerging group of fast-growth entrepreneurs who are building new markets based on new generations and writing new rules for business along the way. And if that story's given you your own glimpse of global greatness, I'll see you again for the next Capital Conversation.